We've all lied awake at night, overcome with existential terror as the screaming of the wilderness reverberates through our bones. But one howl in particular always stands out as the most terrifying of all. Have you ever wondered what poor, tormented beast could produce such a blood-curdling cry? It's time you found out. So gather close around my lantern light and listen to the tale of the tortured herds that roam our world. Listen to my account of the Screaming Antelope. Let us start with the story of the antelope's creation. It is said that once a fearsome monster was trained by a being known as the Hand to be a steed for the Goblin. Two powerful beings whose tales will have to wait for another time. As the beast caught the scent of its new master, its mind was destroyed, its sanity scattered, and it fled into the great unknown. Overcome with frantic desperation, it started foaming at the mouth and biting the noses off the stone-faced floor. And thus a creature of fear and madness joined our world. Of all the things we hunt and combat in our daily lives, there is little malice or ill will to be had for the antelope. It is a creature of tragedy from its inception. At the bottom of the food chain alongside us, it is hunted by lions, feasted on by parasites, twisted in mind and body, seemingly mutated and scared of all existence. It is a creature that never stops running, because to be caught is to be killed. But first, they must be caught. Although their cries have reached us out of the darkness and evoked images of a nightmarish beast, your imagination would not do the insanity of the antelope justice. It is a truly monstrous and unnatural creation, one whose mere existence claws at the fabric of the logical and leaves us petrified to delve deeper into our reality. Were it not necessary for our survival, then perhaps we would not want to talk of them at all. Let us start by looking to what we know for certain. The first time you lay eyes upon an antelope, you will notice its large rugged horns, powerful and deadly, that with age can begin to deform and spiral. Their fur is coarse and brown, clinging to the beast and entirely unkempt. Beneath the outer layers, there is a sea of ticks and parasites. Were you to brush your hands along the antelope and part the fur, you might catch a quick glimpse as a wave of ticks rush for cover. The unceasing irritation of these parasites contributes to the beast's madness, and nowhere is that madness more apparent than in its large, manic eyes, forever watching their surroundings, paranoid of any approaching danger. At first sight of anything untoward, they'll flee with great speed, propelled by wholly unnatural limbs that bend backwards as they run. Then you'll see it, their most horrifying feature. Around their underside, surrounded by tiny hands that writhe and grasp at the air, there is a titanic maw which stretches from neck to groin, capable of swallowing a person whole. Its large, powerful teeth slam together like the blacksmith's anvil, crashing closed over a fleshy, blood and mucus-filled cavity as it bubbles with excitement. Try to imagine a hellish steed, rearing up on its hind legs, towering above you, 3 times your height, as its underside opens up and falls over you, turning your world to darkness before its mighty teeth crush you at your center. It will swallow your head and torso, while half your organs and waves of blood spill all over the floor, only leaving behind a pair of lifeless legs. This is not a theoretical scenario made to scare you. If you hunt antelopes, you will see this happen at least once, and you should prepare yourself for that mentally. With such a cavernous undermouth, it is of no surprise then that an endless activity of the antelope herds is grazing upon fields of acanthus, or anything else that they can stumble on for that matter. But we should perhaps clarify how these creatures eat, for the antelope seem to have some unique biological processes that mean they frequently bite, masticate, and then spit out large portions of their meals. Why do they do this? We don't know for certain, but there seems to be a connection with them eating and gaining strength and energy. Perhaps they do not need to digest food in order to extract benefits from it. There is likely much of import tied to this unique behaviour. For now we might simply assume it is a consequence of their crazed behaviour and their inability to stay still for more than a moment. A part of their nature which is as true of the herd as it is of the individual. At any sign of disturbance, they move, and a single monster sighting could send the whole herd stampeding away in fear. Most peculiar that these creatures, who have a great number of means with which to defend themselves, do not seem quite aware of their own capabilities. Unlike many of the creatures in our realm, they seem to lack sentience, other than in small, fleeting moments. Perhaps their shattered minds have left them incapable of any deeper thought beyond awareness of their own mortality. That's why one of the hardest parts of hunting an antelope is trying to corner one. In most cases they will run and keep running, and so you will require the element of surprise. Get too close, it will flee. Not close enough, and it will outrun you. As such, you must approach it from all sides and box it in. And that means you need to be ready and aware of where they are before you ever lay eyes on the creature, and you must know the common signs of their presence. In attempting to catch their trail, you'll have an easier time. These creatures love to eat, and most of all, they love to eat acanthus plants. In their wake, they leave behind half-eaten plants, uprooted and chewed on. They also leave behind something most peculiar, for as we've heard, they have a tendency to only half consume their food. They chew it up and they spit it out. You would not be the first survivor to lose your lunch on the hunt for an antelope. Many have encountered a stomach-churning mess of fields, with badly destroyed ground, cracked faces, and debris everywhere, littered in toxic-smelling dung and half-digested viscera. You're unlikely to find much of anything useful left behind, perhaps a few bones or a half-digested piece of hide, but the contents of an antelope's excrement, or its vomit, are highly toxic, and you'll likely harm yourself for your troubles of trying to retrieve it. The frequent discovery of these vomit-covered plains once again hints at an underlying sickness within the antelope. They consume at a rate as if starving, yet regurgitate so much. They also leave behind damaged remains from clashes for dominance. We know antelopes can be in heat, and this may cause a struggle for superiority amongst their herds. They confront each other with their large, powerful horns, and typically scar and crack the landscape in the tussle. You'll also commonly find large teeth. Antelopes can develop issues with their giant second mouths, and like children teething, they'll chew on everything and anything to help alleviate the discomfort. This can result in their large teeth becoming dislodged and left behind. With the vast array of signs and clues, it does not take a skilled hunter to track an antelope, but this should speak volumes to their ability to survive and their aptitude for fleeing. Remember, you are not the only ones after the antelope. The white lions and other creatures pursue the same prize. If you're unlucky, you may end up confronting a far scarier beast than you anticipated. And with the antelopes possessing a phenomenal awareness of their pursuers, you may just be the easier catch. But this manic paranoia from the antelope leaves them constantly on edge, and the whole herd can be brought to a stampede quite easily, inevitably migrating across the great landscape en masse. Careful in your steps, or they'll move beyond reach, and you'll end the year with the whole settlement short of supplies. But if you are careful, and you do manage to catch them, the challenge isn't over, and neither is the running. I hope you've all been practicing your cardio. The antelopes are as difficult to fight as they are to catch on the hunt. They will dart between any of their assailants, dashing to a nearby acanthus plant and then running away from you, only to turn and run directly at you. Quite where they get this energy is not clear, but they do not stop, and they can be wildly unpredictable at times. As the antelopes age, they grow more powerful, and they do not calm. They actually grow more erratic and more terrifying. In the end, it's a simple law of nature. The faster something moves, the harder it will hit, and these creatures have much more mass to them than you'd imagine. If you find yourself on the receiving end of an antelope charging at full speed, well, a direct hit will likely kill you on the spot, but an indirect collision could still certainly knock you down with broken bones or a punctured lung. If you find yourself in the way of a charging antelope's horns, then you'll soon be skewered, with your bowels destroyed and left scattered across the floor. It may seem wise to avoid the pointy end, but years of living in fear have made these creatures incredibly reactive and skilled at preventing themselves being caught or surrounded. So whilst you'll be tempted to hit the creature from its blind spot, where it struggles to see you and where you're safe from impalement, you should be incredibly cautious. The slightest giveaway that you are nearby and it will begin to buck, and its muscly legs tipped with hardened hooves, trained from years of running, will hit you like a club. Once knocked down, an antelope will happily continue to attack, either by dropping its entire body weight on you with a mighty slam, or stomping on you with its large hooves. And this is not the only concern with fighting in close quarters. Proximity to the monster will leave you vulnerable to the ticks and parasites that infest its fur. A precise strike may harm the beast, but an embedded sword will leave you close enough to attract the vermin. A bite or two will leave you sick and weakened, which is certainly not ideal in combat with such a violent and wild beast as the antelope. Then, of course, being close also opens you up to being bitten. Or eaten. It's the giant mouth we all fear most of all, and you're lucky if you only lose an arm. In a single bite, it will swallow you whole, locked into the darkness, covered in its acidic, sticky saliva as it slowly dissolves your skin and absorbs your nutrients. Once inside, there's little you can do except rely on your fellow survivors to damage the beast enough for it to spit you up. There are those who claim to have been swallowed themselves, and credit their escape to striking at an apparent second heart within the great cavity. This may just be a rumour, a tall tale, but at that point, what have you got to lose? As the antelopes age, they only grow stronger, their hide becomes tougher, their horns grow exceptionally large and twist with particular detail, like ancient tree branches. Mature antelopes are so intimidating, they can break your psyche just by being in your presence. It should only be approached by the bravest of souls, for nothing less will be able to stand against the power of its eponymous scream. Whether knowingly or not, when terrified, the antelopes unleash a desperate cry. At such close range, and seeing the madness of the creature, it becomes almost contagious, but it also carries with it physical vibrations that can harm your limbs and can affect you doubly if you're not prepared. Its cries are so overwhelming, they have driven more than one person to forcefully deafen themselves in an attempt to escape the screaming. They'll follow this break in the tension with an attempt to eat. A sudden dart for the acanthus plants, whose restorative properties seem to work doubly for the antelopes, who almost heal faster than you can wound them. And they won't stop eating until there's nothing left, looking like new even towards the end of a long and daunting engagement. So steel your mind and be ready to start over after being on the precipice of victory. In fact, for the most experienced hunters, they will preemptively harvest as much of the local acanthus plants as they can before cornering the beast, in order to mitigate these circumstances. This comes with its own dangers, because if the antelope can't find acanthus, its hunger will drive it to eat whatever else is available. Carry anything consumable and it will target you first. It will eat your lunch, it will eat your backpack, it will eat your sword, and then it will eat you. So what might you offer by means of retaliation? I suggest starting with something big and heavy. A precise strike with a blunt weapon will do immeasurable, long-lasting damage to an antelope. A shield or club struck against its head will leave it confused and moving around more frantically. Strike the joints of its legs and cripple its movement to remove one of its most powerful tools. The gamblers amongst you may go for the neck, hoping to kill it in one foul swoop, but this will only work on a younger creature, as the older antelopes grow and develop stronger muscles. But pay close attention, for the antelope's wounds don't always last. Seemingly, a weakened creature may suddenly regain its strength and its speed, and as you wear down, this second wind can be incredibly demoralizing. When you are at your weakest, it's almost certain to be then you'll find your eyes cross with the antelopes. With just a glimpse, you'll see the childlike terror contained within. Nothing will bring you closer to the antelope than to lock eyes and realize you are the same. But it's you or it. When you reach this point of desperation, you may be tempted to strike at a most vulnerable location, the beast's undermaw. Swiping at its tongue is an easy target, but there's a risk involved. Strike the teeth and you'll feel the collision vibrate up your arms, and that may be just before you lose them. Do enough damage to this great second mouth, and you'll see a reaction from the antelope that will live in your mind forever. As it attempts to contain its rising fear and emotions, its maw will begin to emit sounds of gurgling, bubbling and moaning. It may scream more wildly than it ever has when consumed by fear, bucking back and forth and then leaping in the air, only to land on its stomach, second mouth wide and sliding along the floor on its giant teeth. You can almost hear the sound of the stone and soil scraping along its hardened, enamel shield-like mouth. Can't you feel your hair stand on end at the thought? But perhaps like me, you also feel the mutterings of sympathy, as these wild, desperate actions don't speak of controlled confidence. The antelope wants to live, and it's doing anything it can. These differences between itself and the lion is why only more experienced hunters attempt to confront the antelope. The two beasts stand in great contrast, the soft, majestic fur of the lion against the coarse, tick-riddled hide of the antelope. The lion's sharp, honed claws and teeth, like precision weapons, against the rough and barbaric giant teeth. Graceful movements from the cat against the antelope's backwards bending joints and uncontrolled bucking. It's why we wear the lion's fur in honor and celebrate our victory. Returning survivors of the antelope hunt, we just pray they make it back without losing their minds. And look at the way we use their carcass. It almost returns us to a more primitive state, with tribalistic jewelry, face paint made from the bladder and blood, but we even consume parts of their brain in order to clear our own minds. I do not find much honor in our victory over the antelope, but we do what we must to survive, and the antelopes do the same. A few of their kind have been particularly successful, and we learn much of the antelope's true nature from some of their longest living. In particular, two stand out as distinctive, having been named and feared by many a survivor: the mad steed and the gregalope. Of both we know little, but their existence drives our speculation. Firstly, the mad steed, an antelope said to be trained by the hand for himself, ridden from task to task, slowly twisting the antelope into an evil and devilish beast. Its veins and eyes burn with fire, and there are whispers that in its inception it was imbued with the fiery spirit of another, eternally trapped and fighting to escape. And then there is the gregalope. Coming from more trustworthy accounts, this beast's massive body is ancient and bloated with tumours and scar tissue. It looks out through milky eyes and is more elusive than any other, thanks to its aged wisdom and great speed. However, it also possesses a higher level of sentience than any other antelope, as it has, on occasion, bowed and acknowledged survivors out on the hunt, as if respecting their fight to survive and wishing them the best of luck in this damned world of ours. So go now, and take these lessons with you when next hunting the antelope. Remember that a being whose only goal is to survive is one of the scariest and least predictable there is. Just as you would struggle to survive by any means necessary, your target will be doing the same. If you do catch a look into the antelope's eyes as you're about to strike the final blow, try to balance your emotions. On the one hand, avoid becoming overburdened by guilt, and on the other, don't lose yourself to animalistic rage. And if you're not quite satisfied by what you've heard, then come, follow me somewhere quieter, for in hushed tones we may speak of forbidden theories on the antelope's true origin.